Hello sports fans, Ribbo here for Cowboy Gaming. Now, I'm sure you've guessed, no arena today. Aww, sad times for everyone. But, yeah, go on. We'll discuss the patch notes. Why not? It's been 48 hours, so I've had a little bit of feedback on people and what they think about it, but might as well give my thoughts, as meaningless as they are. There's little worth that really you're going to get from it. But for maybe the two people who don't yet know, because they haven't played Hearthstone in the last 48 hours, we've had changes to Unleash the Hounds, which is largely irrelevant. Nobody cares about hunters. Sylvanas Windrunner up from 5 to 6, which I agree with. All of the aggro decks, they went aggro, 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 and occasionally you went arg, fall over and die, and occasionally you went, oh, just about dealing with it, make a couple of guys, and then they go, Sylvanas. And you go, okay, so all these guys I've just made, I actually have to throw at Sylvanas. So you could have like 8 power of guys, you could have, say, 2 4/4s, and you're like, I've got to throw them both at Sylvanas. Because if I keep one of them alive, Sylvanas will pinch it. So yeah, Sylvanas was ridiculously good for the aggro decks. So I'm fine with that being put up from 5 to 6. Generally, I find the rule is, if a card gets nerfed and still gets played in every single deck, then the nerf was correct. So we've got a few of those coming up. I still think we'll see some Sylvanas being played. It might drop a little bit from some of the aggro decks, but Blood Imp had to be nerfed. It's been sledgehammered, but I prefer an over nerf to an under nerf. Warlocks were just too good. You know, they were dominating the rankings from top to bottom. Everyone in Constructed had a Warlock deck. It's like, you know, you generally have several decks, right? And you switch between them as the metagame shifts. Everyone had a Warlock deck. So that tells you a little bit about how good Blood Imp was. One of the problems with Blood Imp, well, it's not so much a problem. It was one of the bizarre things was occasionally, in rare situations, it actually healed minions. Like, for example, the Warlock has something with one toughness remaining on it. With the Blood Imp out, and you would play Equality. So the enemy's minion would reset to 1 health, and then the Blood Imp would reapply the buff, and it'd become like a 2/2 again instead of a 2/1. So Equality, you playing Equality would actually heal a point from one of your opponent's minions. So that felt wrong. So I'm glad they've done away with that shenanigans. A little bit of an over nerf, but that said, you know, Young Priestess would have been awesome if it had stuck around every single turn. You know, it generally like dies the turn after it comes into play every time. So Blood Imp is a bit like that. But it does mean that, you know, because one of the things about aggro decks was they go rawr, and then the other player goes, whew, reached my Consecration mana, or my Holy Nova mana, or my Blizzard mana. But then the Blood Imp went, but all of these guys now have 3 toughness. So your spell, like, kills me and nothing else. And then they kill you on the next turn. So this allows for cards like Consecration and like Knife Juggler and stuff like that to actually have a chance at killing something. When you have a player, like some of the top streamers, when you have them putting cards like Mad Bomber into every control deck they make, simply because their opponent might have a Blood Imp, and if they do have a Blood Imp, they just lose to it if they can't deal with it. So if everyone plays Mad Bomber solely for that reason, something's a bit wrong, because they'd go like Blood Imp, and they'd make, say, the 1/3 with taunt, and it'd be a 1/4, and all of a sudden the control player's got a wrath or a lightning bolt, or, you know, in the case of Chamois, it might not just be a lightning bolt. It could be like the one that gives +3 to a character, and all of those all of a sudden aren't killing a 1-drop. So, well, not that turn anyway. So I can understand why they've kind of overnerfed Blood Imp there. They might make it fractionally stronger in the future. They might turn it back to a 1/1 with stealth. Who knows? Defender of Argus down from a 3/3 to a 3/2. Yeah, I'm fine with that. It was sort of punching its weight above the curve. Like, if you think about it, like, 4 mana gets you a Chillwind Yeti, a 4/5. So, Defender of Argus for the same mana was a 3/3, giving 2 other things +1/+1, so it's a 5/5. Plus those other 2 things get taunt, so that's got to be worth a little bit of something as well. So it's definitely punching above its weight on the whole value thing, so I'm fine with it being made 3/2. We got some more of these things here. Like, so Pyroblast has gone up from 8 to 10 mana, which is a good change. It's purely for Constructed, it's a good change. Like, for Arena, it changes nothing. But for Constructed, again, one of the problems was the aggro mage decks just went rawr, beat you up, like put you to 16 and then fireball you and pyroblast you out. So this allows the paladin decks and maybe the druid decks, I guess, to actually get to 7 mana and get to 8 mana and lay on hands or play their 5/6 that, you know, gives them health back. And likewise with the druid, they've got like not nourish. They got that little tree dude for 7 mana. It's a 5/5 that you can gain life or draw 2 cards, stuff like that. So the control decks needed a little bit of help there from that. So that's a good change, it being 10 mana. It just gives them that extra 2 turns to try and look for an answer, which really helps. Abusive Sergeant matching Dark Iron Dwarf, I think is cool. Like, it's not a huge nerf for Dark Iron Dwarf. The way most people play Dark Iron Dwarf is they turn their 1/1 into a 3/1, and then they bash the other guy's 4/3. So it's not going to see a whole lot of change in how a lot of people play the card. Whatever you buff trades with their guy immediately. It has a slight buff in a way, in that you no longer have to buff your opponent's minions if you don't have any minions of your own out, which is quite cool. But you can, if you still want to, obviously temporarily buff one of your opponent's minions so that you can then play like a big game hunter or something to kill it, which is useful. So, you know, I'm fine with Abusive Sergeant and Dark Iron Dwarf doing the same things, no problems there. Dark Iron Dwarf is still going to get played, so, you know, the nerf was fine in that respect. And again, it was punching above its weight, like with it being a 6/4 for 4 mana. The most interesting of all the changes is Novice Engineer down to a 1/1 from a 1/2, and again, it's still going to get played in pretty much every deck. So, like, that nerf seems absolutely fine. It was the fact that, like, hero abilities couldn't kill it instantly, and also it took out 2 Pally heroes, little 1/1 Silverhand Knights, which was ridiculous, considering it was drawing a card. It's still going to get played in every slow deck that wishes to sort of rush through their deck at lightning speed to get to the good stuff, yeah. So that seems absolutely fine to me. I've already mentioned about a Sylvanas Windrunner. So most of the changes, I believe the devs have said previously, they kind of balance them around primarily around Constructed. Because if you think about it, that's the mode that the casual players are going to be playing the most. You know, they're not going to have like the goal to be playing arena like constantly. So they have to make sure that constructed is varied, and you're not kind of forced into just playing the best deck because one deck is considerably better than the others. Oh, yeah, of course, there's been one card we haven't mentioned, which actually isn't on there. Well, it's not on this bit. It's on the bit right at the top there with Warsong Commander. It's not actually mentioned in the blurb below. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I'm completely blind. It's because I'm wearing shades. Warsong Commander has been reworked. This makes it completely unplayable, but that's kind of a good thing, because you've noticed on a couple of the Warrior videos I've made how I talk about this card basically breaks one of the fundamental rules of the game, which is that your minion has to wait a turn before attacking. There's just something wrong about making a 6/7 ogre and attacking with it instantly. But more importantly, I was saying that they needed to nerf Molten Giant. Maybe like make it a minimum casting cost of 4 or 5, something like that. But this is a much better way of fixing the Warrior deck. Now, this isn't to say it's because the Warrior deck was too good. It wasn't. I never lost to the Warrior deck with the Paladin deck, and I'll explain to you now why. So, you started playing, and within 3 turns, you would realise you're against a 1-turn kill Warrior deck. And you'd be like, okay, I'm not going to damage you at all, not a single point. So their armour up, armour up, armour up go to about 40, 45. And they play, like, literally a few threats. So they have, like, an Arathi weaponsmith, a couple of weapons, stuff like that. Really nothing to trouble you at all as a pally. But they can never play their 2 Molten Giants because they're at 40 life. So what you do is you build up a nice big force of dudes. So you just wait for like one of your Swords of Justice to turn up. Play some dudes. They go, haha, brawl, wipe out your side of the board, and you go, okay, that's cool. You're still at 40, but you're not hurting me at all. And I'll just build up a full board of dudes again. And they may have a second brawl, like a lot of just running 1 brawl, but some run 2, so you go, haha, brawl again. And then you build up a whole bunch of dudes again. You don't attack, you're not attacking at any point. And eventually, they exhaust, because they're just flying through the deck, so take 1, then they take 2, they take 3, then they take 4, then they take 5, and they're down to about 28 life at this point. Okay, we can leave it another turn. Then they take 6, they go to 22, and then you go, haha! Hit you for 31 with all of my guys on 1 turn, you die. So, and they never play their Molten Giants at any point in the game. So the deck is super easy to beat. The only problem is the games take 40 minutes. You just sit there going, pass a turn, pass a turn, pass a turn. Like, nothing's happening. It's a game they can't possibly win. At least they couldn't for a couple of weeks until they started doing the whole Alex Straza thing. When people started to wise up as to how you could just beat them with absolute ease. And if you've ever seen the 1-turn kill deck against the 1-turn kill deck, that is the dullest thing you will ever experience. So, I'm glad they got rid of that deck because it wasn't fun. And what you have to remember is a lot of people go, oh, I want a lot of varied different decks and styles and stuff like that in the game, The game has to be fun. If the game is not fun, people will not play it. If people are not playing the game, Blizzard are not earning money. And if Blizzard aren't earning money, there won't be any game at all. So, before people start saying stuff like they shouldn't nerf this, I'm fine with the nerf, because if it keeps people playing, all the better. Like any time, I mean, we saw this with the previous patch about 3 months ago. When Rogue was ridiculous. I mean, utterly ridiculous with the Miracle Rogue deck, and I played a tiny amount of Constructed, just to do dailies occasionally and stuff like that. And if I came up against a Miracle Rogue deck, I just conceded because it was no fun. Because we just sit there for 6 turns and then they make a Van Cleef that's 18/18 and got stealth. And then they attack you with it next turn and give it stealth again. It's like, well, aren't these great games? No, they're not. So, that's what all you have to remember about it is, the game has to be fun for Blizzard to make some money. Now, let's go on to a couple of different points. Lots of people have been complaining about Arena costing $2. I'm not going to complain about that. Yeah, sure, I never have to pay the $2 because I'm doing pretty good with the gold. But there's like a staff of 10 people on the dev team, and then of course you've got all the customer service guys and stuff like that, and then all the actual programmers and things like that. I mean, imagine they're doing it in C++ or some language like that, or Java, I guess. They're all going to be like on, I don't know, $45,000 a year, something like that. Maybe more, maybe less, depending on their seniorities. So that's 10 people you got to pay for. So before anything else comes, like purely from staffing costs, probably, and then you've got like the guys in marketing, and the guys hiring, and project managers, and the guy taking care of the server, and the localization guys who all have to be paid to translate into various languages. So you're looking at upwards of like $500,000 to $1 million a year in outlay, easy. And they got to make that back in Arena, so they got to have like 500,000 people play Arena just to break even. Because the whole thing that you're paying your $2, and you're not paying to play Constructed, so you can pay like $20, and then for the rest of the year you can just play Constructed with the cards you've got from there. Or if you're like me and you've done quite well at some point in the game, you don't pay anything at all. But $2 seems absolutely fine to me. There's been suggestions, people have said, why can't you just have like a 24-hour pass with Arena where you're allowed to play as much as you want for like a set fee. And the problem there is that people build an Arena deck, go, this sucks, and then concede. Get their free pack and then go play another one. Or, there's lots of issues anyway. And, so one of the other issues people said was, yeah, but at least in Magic Gathering you get to keep the cards you've drafted. This is problematic. It happens a lot in Magic the Gathering. This guy Soren, he'll tell you all about it. But when people draft, they go, "Oh, I really want this for my Constructed deck. It's not very good for draft, but I'll take it anyway. For my Constructed deck." So people don't play purely to win the draft that they're in. They also yoink the occasional good card on the side that they're not going to play just because it's worth the money. And Blizzard didn't want that. Blizzard didn't want people taking cards because they needed it for their Constructed deck. Blizzard wanted people taking what was, in their opinion, the best card for Arena. So occasionally, like, trying to think of a good example here, you might get offered legendaries. For example, you could have one that is considerably better in Arena, and another one which is considerably better in Constructed. I'm struggling to think of an excellent example of that right now, but maybe Tinkmaster over Spark would be a good idea of that. Much better in Constructed than in Arena. Whereas you might get yes, that's a good example. I get yes, depending on what the other two things are on offer. So you could get offered gruel, which is pretty good in arena, completely unplayable in constructed. But if you got offered like gruel and a couple of other legendaries that weren't that great for arena, you'd take the gruel. But if you wanted a card for constructed, you might take one of the other two cards that was better in that spot, like yeah, like something. I'm trying to remember his name and I can't. The dude that destroys weapons and draws cards equals to the endurance left on the weapon. You know the one. So I'm fine with Blizzard like gradually moving the game towards something that's actually enjoyable for the majority of people. There's also a bit of a counterculture developing. That there's some basically bad players who are complaining that they lose all the time, even though the resources are out there from people such as myself to improve their win rates. They're complaining that arena isn't fun enough because they only get to do it 1 in 3 days, and how everything should be free for them. If everything was free for them, they wouldn't be playing the game because the game wouldn't exist if it was free for them completely. But their basic complaint seems to be that they're not getting enough gold. I mean, I complain about not getting enough gold in arena. I get 9 wins every time, and I still complain that I only get like 155 gold or something like that. I find arena extremely fun. That was it. Yeah, they were complaining that arena was too hard now. Because all the casual players have basically run out of gold, which is true. You do have to grind like your full 100 gold in constructed, and then go off and play arena, once a day, and that does suck. But there's no other way of doing it, That's how every competitive game's always been. Like, if you go play Call of Duty for the first time, or Team Fortress 2, there'll be some guy who's been playing the game for 3 years and is really good and kicks your ass, and it's not much fun. You just have to suck it up and try to improve at the game. Because Hearthstone is a competitive game. As much as it tries to say that it's casual friendly, the best players are going to win, and if you're struggling with the game, you're going to keep on struggling. If you have any easy solutions to this, like for example, one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to introduce an MMR for arena, and that doesn't work. The main reason that doesn't work is because I'm paying an entry fee, 150 gold, to play. You are also paying an entry fee, 150 gold, maybe $2 or whatever, to play. So we are paying the same. This means that we have to be treated the same when we get into the arena. For 15 years I played poker professionally. If I was to pay my entry fee and then say, oh, sorry, we're going to put you with the tougher players because we know you're a good player, I'd be like, how about no? That is not going to happen because I paid the same as the other guys. So, you should be randomly paired up in that first round against anyone. They could be good, they could be bad. That's the luck of the draw. Now, after that, you get paired up with people on similar scores to you. So, eventually the good players sort of hit the good players. But for the first couple of rounds, it's possible. You could just be really unlucky and come up against a really good player. You just got to suck it up and come back tomorrow after grinding another 100 gold. That's just how it is. Tournaments always have to be treated as independent entities and not as part of some grandiose scheme and some sort of larger thing. I mean, sure, there's tournaments where people do get sort of ranked beforehand, but that is in tennis, and a good player is always paired up against a really bad player in the first round. They never put the good players together, so that kind of system keeps all the good players to get apart until the end, and you don't want something like that. Like, the bad players don't want that, where they're just going to get sort of dream crushed 3-0 by 3 good players every time. Because ultimately, all of us, every single person who plays the game wants to win, and we all want the bad players for ourselves. The good players want to be paired up against bad players. The bad players also want to be paired up against the bad players. So, when a bad player says it's unfair that I should get a good player in the first round, the good player might say, well, it's unfair that I get a good player in the first round, isn't it? It's, but, that's what happens. So, I'm fine with how Arena is at the moment, and I'm not just saying that because I always get to 7 wins, because I don't always get to 7 wins now. People are getting better. Here's the thing, people are getting better at the game. Like, every week you go on, people are getting slightly better at the game. That guy who 3 weeks ago was using Sinister Strike on turn 1 on you, he's not doing that anymore. So, when all the people around you are getting better at the game, you also have to get better at the game to stay on top. There's a big mountain, and you're halfway up there, like getting booted in the face from the people who are above you, and the people below you are like grabbing at your ankles, trying to pull you down. Not pull your pants down, just pull you down. So, it's up to you to grab the guy's ankles who's above you and yank him down and boot the guy who's underneath you in the face to get him off your ankles. You have to improve along with everyone else. Otherwise, they just all overtake you and you don't go anywhere. Well, you go backwards. You fall off the mountain, run out of gold, and have to come back tomorrow. So, that's kind of my rant, I think. I think I'm fairly balanced with what I'm saying there. I don't think I'm being particularly unfair, but for the record, if I did just want to solely beat up bad players all the time, I would have never have made this channel. Like, I would never have released over 100 full arena runs. And here's the cool thing, like, if you were to watch my arena runs from the first one all the way through to the 100th. These are not just the mystery arena runs, but I did 15 before I started doing these things. You would see me getting better throughout them all, because my first one I ever did, one of the first ones I ever did was with Shaman, and it was literally the first time I'd even seen half the cards, and I went 9-1 with the class, So I'm not saying I'm a prodigy in that respect, or that I've got some natural talent, but the opposition was quite easy back then. But if I had, but the strategies I was using was by no means great at all. I valued a lot of cards differently. I valued Direwolf Alpha a lot higher, although you could argue it is slightly better with chamois than anything else. But you can see me noticeably improve over the 4 months. And that's what you have to do as well. That's just the long and the short of it. You can't use a strategy that works for you and expect it still to work, in 3 months' time. As people get better in Arena, your decks are actually going to get slower and slower. Because you can get away with really fast decks when your opponents are bad, because they're just going, look at all these powerful cards, and they're just taking really expensive cards, and you just take a bunch of guys that are all 2 mana and go, rawr, and they fall over before they get to play any of their cards. Whereas a good player will have a proper mana curve themselves, so they'll probably have 5 or 6 2-drops, a few 3-drops, a few 4, 5, 6. So you can't get away with a rushing strategy then in the metagame, as just good players are left. So your deck also slows down, because you need bigger guys, and you need to go for sort of more value cards than sort of beat you up cards. And so your strategy has to develop like over the 3 or 4 months as the game goes on. Anyway, I think that kind of sums up most of this like quite well. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to with some of the changes. I'm not going to lie. I'll probably have to reevaluate some of the cards, particularly with Warrior, because of course, you know, Warsong Commander was a ridiculously high pick in Arena, and it's probably unplayable because so many of the Warrior cards have 4 power that you want to play. It's probably only like a Wrathy Weaponsmith that you can really get away with. Because like Frothing Berserker very often is, you know, it comes in as a 2/4, but if it's got haste, a charge even, stop using Magic Gathering terms, Graham. If it's got charge, then what you tend to do is get another minion, bash it into one of their minions, and then your guy is 4/3, and, you know, in it goes. So you won't be able to do that anymore. There'll be like a ton of stuff that basically has made Warsong Commander completely unplayable. But I'm still going to be taking Defender of Argus. I never really took Novice Engineer in Arena, so I'm probably still not going to take that. I'm obviously still going to take Dark Iron Dwarf. Blood Imp, probably not going to take it at all. Unleash Your Hounds, I'm definitely not ever taking, because I'm never going to play Hunter in Arena, as you are all well aware of that. And obviously I'm still going to take Sylvanas Windrunner when it's offered, because it's a legendary, and legendaries are awesome. Anyway guys, thanks for checking this video out. Let me know what you personally think of the changes. I know people who've been on our Facebook group for the last 48 hours have been, you know, posting their thoughts, and I've sort of conveyed a few of those thoughts into this post, this video right here. Well, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I've got to make some more videos now and download the patch and everything like that, and I'll tell you all how it's been going maybe tomorrow. Ta-da!